she said it so powerfully, didn't she? She felt bad that he would have to own her. Wow, that's an incredible feeling and thought. And yet the amazing thing is this, is that God wanted to own her. When he recognized that it would take a payment to own her. And so he made the payment. Same payment he makes for you and for me. That he wants to make the payment. And so he sends his son as a ransom for us to make the payment for us. Wow. Okay. Well, you guys, this morning we want to continue kind of in that line. We want to continue on our series called Ask Anything and Everything. And so it's where kind of we've been headed. And we want to say to this, that asking a question simply is wisdom. To ask questions is wisdom. It's right. It's good. And so we're going to ask whatever questions. Now, and also just a review of a couple of weeks ago, when we give an answer, we're going to try to give an answer like this. We're going to give an answer, first of all, that satisfies your head and your heart. We're going to try the best we can to give an answer that satisfies both your head and your heart because you're holistic people. It all fits together. And so we can't just do one or the other. We're going to try to answer both. Secondly, we're going to try to give an answer that's somehow grounded in truth. Now, where you find that truth and where that truth comes from is something that we've wrestled with and we talked about last time. Where does that and where does ultimate truth come from? Pilate asked that of Jesus. So what is truth? And the truth is that we're going to suggest comes from a divine origin. And that who God is and who he is as a person and what he has done and created and unfolded is actually truth. And so we're going to try to ground it in truth. Because any answer absent of truth is just kind of slippery. It's just loose. It's just weak. It's got to have truth in it. But any answer that has grace also, because the next thing we want to do is we don't want to miss involving grace, because any answer that's only truth is harsh. There has to be a combined element of grace. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the sanctity of human life. Many churches would probably hesitate to say much, if say anything at all, because they do not want to add shame to where shame already is. Or to add guilt to where guilt already exists. But if we ignore the shame and the guilt that we live in and that we experience, then we leave people in their pain. We really don't help. And so trying to enter in and really embrace that. So we want to give an answer that doesn't miss involving grace. And last but not least, we want to admit that sometimes we don't get it. So whether on this question or others, there may be places where you just go, man, I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm not smart enough for it, or I just don't get it. So those are going to be some of the things. Now, next week, what we'd like to do, I think, is answer this question. How do we know that God created time? And just so you know where that question came from, it came from Quest Kids. Someone is thinking far beyond where I was thinking when I was in elementary school. Probably junior high. Beyond where I was in high school. Beyond where I was in college, let's admit it. Beyond where I am today. And thinking, okay, how do you know that God created time? And what difference does it make? And how does it apply to life? Wow, that'll be kind of interesting. But today what we want to do is answer this. Hey, what's the deal with creation? Now, we're not going to be able to answer all the questions about creation today, but we want to kind of hone in on one thing. We want to ask this. Is it important in my understanding of God and of man? In other words, is this introductory story of the Bible, if it's just kind of a myth, okay, if it's just an allegory, then what does it have to say? But what if it's more than that? What if the beginning of the story sets the stage for the whole thing? It answers so much of all the questions that we're going to ask. What if it's real? What does this have to say about who God is and about who we are? It also, I want to ask this kind of change the question a little bit. Does it help us understand mankind's identity and therefore value? Does creation help us understand man's identity and therefore value? I think there are really some very important issues that we deal with in our today in our society. Three different profoundly important, what I call battlegrounds of the culture. Okay? First of all, one is the sanctity of marriage. It is an incredibly powerful, in-our-face cultural battleground right now. And we're going to have to address that. We're going to, one of these weeks in this Ask Anything and Everything series, is to answer the question of the sanctity of marriage and what it's all about. We will stand in a different place of the culture and it will have some ramifications and maybe implications as to us individually and to us as a church, potentially. So, secondly, I think in our culture, we face the issue of the sanctity of human life. And we're going to address that one today. But it's really married to the other sanctity of the third issue of the sanctity of identity. In our world, in our culture, that is one of the primary things going on of trying to decide, where does your identity come from? Okay? It's really an important deal. And so it's really this is the big idea. The identity of something reveals its value. It's going to be the big idea. The identity of something reveals its value. Let me just give you an example. This is and so in short, I'm sorry, go back one. Thanks, bro. Let's shorten it. Identity reveals value. We'll just shorten that. Identity reveals value, right? So let's go to this. This is a painting. It's an interesting painting. It's a beautiful painting. And it is, this painting was out there, but it was unseen on the most part for almost 100 years. It was found in 2013 in a guy's attic, a Norwegian man's attic. And over the years, it had been debated on what it was and who painted it, and it was unsigned. But eventually, it was determined that this was an unsigned Van Gogh. It's called the Sunset, or really the Sunset of Montmajor. You got to be French to say it. But this is a Van Gogh, and they've authenticated it as a Van Gogh just last year. And its value, because it's a Van Gogh, is somewhere between $40 and $100 million. Now, if it's not a Van Gogh, it would be worth a lot of money, but not near that kind of money, right? And so it's not for sale. It hasn't been sold yet. But it probably would sell somewhere in this because it's going to be one of the most unique Van Goghs ever, a Van Gogh that's not signed. A signed Van Gogh wouldn't be near as valuable as this, and so it may go for that. So its identity determines its value. So let me ask you this. What gives mankind, and here's a question for you out of another picture where we're trying to be sensitive, to those who may be offended by his nakedness. But what gives mankind identity and therefore value? What gives mankind identity and therefore his value? And just so you know, this is obviously Adam, but we want to be fair, so we'll include Eve here for a second. But Eve's, it's not as complimentary. I felt bad in a sense. This is on the Sistine Chapel. But what gives mankind identity and therefore value? Well, let me ask just a few questions. Is it what you do that gives you identity and value? But what happens if that gets taken away? What happens to your identity and to your value? Well, and maybe this, is it what you wear? So easy to get caught into that, especially when we're young people in school, making sure we have the right clothes on, and after a while, you just go, oh, what a joke, well, because as soon as you buy all the right stuff, then it changes, right? Either it's a new style or a new company or whatever. Is it what you wear or what you think or what you think up, in life? Is that what determines if you're really smart or you have some new thought or what you think up in life? I was talking to a guy one day, and he was telling me as a philosophy of life and what the identity of mankind and this and that. And it was something I'd never heard before. And I said, well, really, where'd you learn that? And he said, well, when I was in the Navy, I was on an aircraft carrier, and I sat on the edge of it one evening, and I thought it up. And I think this is the truth. And I said, well, hello, Sally. Okay, okay. It was a little strange. Or maybe it's what others determine for you or of you. Is that your identity, what other people say you are? Well, or maybe it's this, that there's no inherent value or identity at all in life. No really inherent value. It's all an accident. You're an accident. It's an amazing accident, but you're an accident. There's no inherent value in who you are as a person, any more than the tree or the cuttlefish. You guys probably don't know what the cuttlefish is, but go home and look up cuttlefish and look at the National Geographic thing. It's an amazing animal. It's like complex. It's beautiful. It's unique. But it's an accident. Or maybe it was created. But where does your value come from? So let me just suggest, I think we find our value in creation. And let me just go real quickly. We're going to cover creation real quick. On the first day of creation, God, it says, out of nothingness, out of ex nihilo, nothing, out of nothing, only in himself. He existed. He is the one who has always been, is, and will always be. And out of nothingness, he created just in his word. And on the day of creation, he created light, and he separated the light from the darkness, and he separated day from night. He took a whole day to do that. Now, whether you believe this is an age, a long period of time, or a 24-hour period of time, is not so critical. I do believe in a 24-hour day, and it was created in 7 literal days. I believe that God did that. But whatever it was, this is what he did day 1. Look at day 2. He created the expanse, the separation of the waters above and the waters below the expanse. That's a very interesting thought. It's going to come in absolutely critical when we come to the issue of the flood and of dinosaurs and other issues. So that part of the waters above and the waters below has become very important several chapters later. And therefore, it called the expanse the heavens and all the space in which God made. And that song that the gal referred to in her testimony tells all about the fact that the sun and the moon and the stars announce the glory of God. And so often we live in a culture that forgets about it. You ever been out there late at night in the quiet of the evening and looked up when there's no light pollution? It's amazing. And you begin to really try to understand the immensity of the universe. And you feel so small. But here's the amazing thing. I'm pretty convinced that in the whole universe, the only redemptive life that he created in his image was here on planet Earth. Really? You gotta be kidding. We're just a little dot in the universe. And for some reason, as Jesus took human form and remains in human form, that you and I are the object of his incredible love. It's a stunning deal. Well, that was second day 2 of creation. Look at that on day 3. He made the waters under the expanse, and they were gathered into seas, and he separated from dry land. So he made the seas and the land. That's amazing. Day 4, the creation of the lights and the expanse, the separation of day and night again, kind of an expansion of what he did on day 1. And the creation of the seasons as a sign, and therefore the sun and the moon and the stars. He made all of that on that day. Wow. Day 5, creation of the sea creatures and the flying creatures. It was enough for one day. He just made the sea and the flying guys. Nothing on land yet. And they told him to multiply, fill the oceans. And then on day 6, the creation of the creatures that would live on the dry land. And then the pinnacle of creation that would be referred to as very good. The pinnacle of his creation. Wow. So let's look at it. Look at this. Genesis 1. It says, and then God, this is after those first 5 days. He says, and then God said, let us make man in our image. Interesting, he uses the plural. Let us make God in our image. It is both probably the plural of majesty of God and who he is and what he's doing, but also the pronoun of plurality. Of God and that in 3 persons, who's always been, is, and will always be. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who have existed from the very beginning of time. That they existed in relationship with each other, and it was totally satisfying. They loved being in a circle dance. Anybody ever come from an ethnic background where you do circle dances? Anybody? No, not really. Okay, I had a friend who was Yugoslavian, and she taught us circle dances. So if you're Jewish or you're Yugoslavian or maybe Greek or whatever, they like to do circle dances. So you put your arms around each other, and then you kind of do these dance steps, and then you kick, and and I won't do much of it here. And but you stay together. And the Trinity is a circle dance of God. That together, they do it all together. That's why you and I need to be in relationship, because you and I are made in the image of God. And the reason we need each other is because we were made for that. We were made to be in a circle dance with each other. That's why it's so important not to get isolated. Okay, enough. Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over the livestock and over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. He gives us dominion, authority, power, responsibility. Was that amazing? Just think, he spent 5 days or 6 days really making all of this stuff, and then he says to us as human beings, it's yours. Have dominion. have authority, take care of it, have a great time. Is that amazing? Now, he didn't give it to us to use and abuse. He told us to take care of it. We haven't done a very good job, frankly. We've done a pretty poor job. But he still gives it to us to take responsibility, to have dominion. And so then in verse 27, and so God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. He formed them out of the dust of the earth. And he created man and woman to be this mankind made in his image. I love the fact that he made us both so similar, right? I mean, we're pretty similar, men and women. We're very similar. We both have brains, the whole thing. And yet we're totally different. Totally different. Physically, we get it, right? Okay, we're different. We cover it up, but we're different. But we're different at every molecule of who we are as people. Did you say amen? We are so different. And it's this beautiful thing of being the same and getting along and being so different that we got to figure out how to get along. And it's not easy. It's amazing. And he created us in his image for a purpose. So this whole idea of men being better than women, it's just so stupid, right? It's so not what the Bible teaches. Or that women are better than men together. Well, we'll come there in a second. Okay, verse 28. And God blessed them. I think we forget that sometimes. God blessed them. He blessed them. It's a beautiful thought. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. He says it twice in 3 verses. He must mean it. Verse 29, and God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food. Wow, cool. You get mangoes. I love mangoes. Okay, so, and for every beast of the field, and for every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. Wow. Can you imagine what an incredible thing he gave us? Wow, that's incredible. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. First time he said it was very good. Every other day he said it was good. And this day he said it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day. Wow. So, there's a couple of things I think we can learn from this. Okay, a couple of things. First of all, our identity is grounded in being created in his image. That's where our identity comes from. You see, my identity does not come from what I do. Whether I be earlier in life, I was a high school teacher and coach. Then I was on staff with Campus Crusade. Now I'm a pastor in a church. That is not my identity. I am simply Kevin, created in the image of God just like you. That's it. That's all I am. But I was created in his image. That's better than being a pastor. That's better than being a football coach. That's better than being a teacher. I was created in his image. Wow. No one can steal that value from me, that identity. No one should to ever take that from me. I think that's amazing. Now, here's another thing. That his image contains that which evolution has no explanation for. The origin of human conscience. You see, there are 3 things that evolution can never explain. The origin of the universe. It can never explain the origin of life itself. They can say how it may have developed, or their theory may say it kind of unfolded this way, but where did it come from? It cannot explain it. It does not know how to do it. And the origin of human conscience. How does the immaterial come from material? How does this thing called the soul come out of simply molecules? It is breathed into us by the Spirit of God, into be made in his image. We have human conscience. I think that's what made in his image means. Third, our identity establishes roles and responsibilities. The fact that we were made for a purpose. And that he adds, inherent in that is roles and responsibilities. So here, then next, is that our roles and responsibilities of dominion and control and authority extends over all creation, right? He said it twice in 3 verses. over all of creation except to mankind. That is the dominion of God himself. That mankind, he didn't tell us to have dominion over each other. He told us to have dominion over the things that were created that fly, walk on the earth, that creep on the ground, that were planted. And his dominion of human life is his dominion, not ours. I think it's an important distinction as we look at the scripture there. And we've kind of worked ourselves into, here in the 21st century, some pretty complicated issues with life, haven't we? This past year, one of the places where I applied this in my own life was we had a dog named Tucker. Tucker is a great dog. I know he barked a lot, but he was a great dog. I love that dog. And Tucker got cancer the past few years. And it became debilitating and painful and inappropriate. And so we decided we needed to put him down. Oh, you guys, it was a horrible day. It was a horrible day. I can't even tell you. You guys know if you've lost a pet, you get it. You go, and we took the whole family. We went to the vet. And it was a horrible day. He's now on our, it sits in a little container on the top of our desk. We kept him, I know we're silly, but we did. And but here's the deal. It felt weird putting him down. It felt strange to take the responsibility to say yes and to be there and do it. But you know what? The thing that helped me the most is God said to me very subtly, but he said, Kevin, this is your responsibility. I gave you dominion over the earth. Take care of it. Take care of your dog. Do not let it suffer. Do not let it suffer. It's inappropriate. Man up, Kevin. Man up, take responsibility, and do what's right. And I thought, okay, that's right. So that's what really gave me courage. And think how small that is. That's a dog, But it was my dog. 12 years our dog. But that was my responsibility. But he gave me dominion over those things, but he did not give me dominion over mankind. And yet in the 21st century, we've got ourselves into some pretty sticky situations. So several years ago, 5 years ago now, my father was really sick, and he was on a life support. And we had to sit down and make a decision as a family whether to take him off that life support or not. That's a hard decision, right? 100 years ago, we would have never been in that position. He would have died earlier than that. But as we looked at his expression, both in his living will and from the doctor said, we already went too far. We had already sustained life beyond what he wanted and beyond what he could sustain, and we had to take him off life support. So like many of you who have been in the same situation, we didn't just say take him off and go and leave. We all gathered there in that room. And I watched him pass away, but to pass, and really what it was is not just pass away, that he allowed us to take my dad and put him into the hands of God. But it was God's call. We medically made it more difficult, right? We extended the life beyond what would have happened normally. And so that was God's choice. That was God's involvement in his life. Wow. So that my dominion doesn't apply to human beings. I don't have dominion over anybody. That's God. Because that which was made in his image is his ownership. It's his dominion. The issues are sticky in our day. I admit that. They're not easy, but it's very real. And last but not least is this, that the sanctity of identity and value then determines the sanctity of human life. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what it actually determines. So let's go back to the big idea here, that the identity of something reveals its value, that identity reveals value. So we've been asking this question, what is it that reveals, what is it that gives mankind identity and therefore value? And we have said this basically, that it is the touch of God. It's painted on the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. It is the touch of God that gives us identity. And it is the touch of God that gives us value. And that is for every human being on planet Earth. Every human being on planet Earth. Wow. Francis Schaeffer said in his book, The God Who Is There, he said this: man in the presence of the God who is there is truly wonderful. I think it's an incredible thought. That is what makes man awesome, beautiful, wonderful, is that God himself, when he touches us. He goes on and he says in another book, the book that he is there and he is not silent, he says this: there is something great about mankind, and we have lost perhaps, I want you to hear this really, I think this is so true, that we have lost perhaps our greatest opportunity for evangelism in our generation by not insisting that it is the Bible that explains why mankind is great. And we have been sucked in by our culture to even think and feel that mankind is not incredibly valuable and awesome in every way, shape, and form because of their being made in the image of God. Somehow we have downplayed it, devalued it, and explained it away. And we have lost our greatest opportunity in this generation of evangelism to say, it is, for this very reason, it is the Bible that tells why man is awesome and great. And there is no other basis for it. There's no other place that gives us identity and value besides God and his word and what he's done. Wow. In his book, Abba's Child, The Cry of the Heart for Intimate Belonging, Brennan Manning, who just passed away, said this: define yourself radically as one beloved by God. This is the true self. Every other identity is illusion. Right? It's true. And I want you to define yourself radically as the one beloved by God. And it doesn't matter. On the testimony, Kristen was saying that surely God couldn't redeem someone who was having a baby out of wedlock. She was identifying herself by all sorts of other standards, right? Rather than the one who is radically who is beloved by God himself. It's a radical identity. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him might not perish but have eternal life. God's love for the world is incredible. It defines who we are. It gives us incredible value. So, when we come to this, it seems to me as we kind of, we'll kind of hone in on here in the touch of God on the Sistine Chapel between God and Adam. And the reality is this, is that it applies then to the unborn. It does. In the scriptures, in Psalms, it says, I knew you before you even were created in your mother's womb. So life didn't even happen in God's mind at conception. It happened right before that. I knew you before that. Not just at conception, though conception starts this incredible thing that starts to happen. It happens even then for the elderly. We live in a world that begins to devalue, excuse, dismiss the elderly. Talking about how do we do away with them? How can we just kill them? Now, it's not catching much traction, but it's starting to a little bit. And not only that, but what about the infirm? Those who are handicapped, those who have less ability. Well, this morning, what I want to do is give a little bit of time for us to focus on this Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, on this next thing of a ministry here in St. Louis that we've had an opportunity and a privilege to partner with called Thrive. And so I'd like to have Steve and his team come up here and fill us in on a few things that we think are really important.
Hey, Gina, Melissa, is this on? Hey, good morning, you guys. Today is Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. It's a day to speak about God's design for life. It's a day to speak to, and this I get emotional when I talk about this, but it's a day to speak to the defending the unborn, and it's a day to speak to the tragedy that is the taking the life of unborn children in this country through abortion. It's been, since 1973, there's been in excess of 56 million lives taken of the unborn. And this isn't God's design. Life is sacred. He created it, and he values it. So what can we do as a church as the culture moves further and further to devaluing life? Well, we can do it in several ways. We can speak into the political process, but we can also, as the video showed earlier today, we can share the love of Christ with people and share the gospel and allow God to speak into the hearts of people and do a grassroots effort in changing. We can also get involved with ministries here in the St. Louis area that do both of those things, speak to the heart and get involved in the political process, and that's Thrive. We happen to have a couple of people involved. We have a team that leads our Thrive ministry, and that's with Melissa. And then we also, oh, there she is. I was wondering where you're at. And then we also have one of our own. You heard her beautiful voice earlier, Gina. Could you tell us about your role with Thrive and how you got involved with it?
Sure. I thought about just standing up here and singing everything I was going to say, so it felt more familiar to you, but I'm just going to use, my regular tone. So Thrive St. Louis is about empowering life and healthy choice. And it says there, who are we? Thrive St. Louis is a Christ-centered organization that empowers young women and men and women, to make life-affirming, esteemable, and healthy decisions about sex, unplanned pregnancy, and relationships. And so my personal role, I'm actually a center manager at one of our pregnancy resource centers. So at our centers, we have 3 locations, one in St. Charles County, one in the Central West End, and one in North County, and I work at the Bridgeton location. I co-manage with one other person, and we're fully staffed with volunteers who provide a lot of the work in our centers. We offer free pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, and free STD testing, and we really strive to be a safe place where women can receive personalized assessment based on free medical services, evaluation, planning, and holistic options counseling. So we want to sit with women, and the reality is that whether you're pro-life or you believe in choice, every woman has to choose. She has to choose to parent, or she will make a choice to allow for adoption, or she'll choose to abort. So if you affirm life, you still have to choose to be a mother, and we sit with women and we talk through that process of how we're going to make that choice. And so we want to be supportive of women in that way.
So when women are faced with unplanned pregnancies, what do they experience and what are those feelings and what are the reasons that they consider abortion?
Sure. I do want to say, I have a slide here with some of those reasons, but the next slide, the other part that I do help with, and this is part of how we care for women holistically, is we also offer a parenting class, and it's a 46-week program. We cover a little bit of everything, the social aspect, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual class topics. And, we actually hand out information with the statements there on the left that just talk about what we talk about in the class. So, if we affirm that a woman should choose life for her child, we want to help her, support her in that process of how she can have a successful life with her child. And so the women, when they attend the class, they earn these baby coupons, and they can use them in a resource shop that we have at one of our centers. And I help teach that class as well. So that's another one of my roles. I really believe in education, in affirming women and empowering them to make healthy life choices aside from choosing life. So some of the reasons, the next slide will give you actually research-based and statistics as to why women choose abortion. The first few statements that are listed there are generally greater than 20% of women would choose for that reason. They're not ready for a child or another child. The timing is wrong. They can't afford another child or a child. They're done having children, or they have other children depending on them, and they don't feel like they can afford or have the emotional ability to care for another child. They don't want to be a single mother. They're having issues with their relationship, maturity, health complications with the baby. And, a lot of times people feel that most women are choosing abortion for the reasons that are more so listed at the bottom, because it's they're victims of rape or their partner wants them to have an abortion, or because their parents want them. And really that makes up less than 5% of why women generally choose to have an abortion. And so I wrote some notes because I could talk about this stuff like for all day. So I'm going to try to keep it concise here. So for my personal experience, at some point I've heard most of these reasons for why women would choose an abortion. And most of the women I sit with express a belief in God and that they desire to have a relationship with him. And yet they find themselves with multiple partners or cohabitating or using harmful birth control or no birth control at all. And they're surprised when they end up pregnant. In this moment and in many moments before the experience or circumstance generally will trump any sort of moral belief. More often than not, they're not under duress. They're just in a situation of great inconvenience. And their choice will be based on potential influences of parenting or abortion may have on the relationship with the father of the baby. So although a partner wanting abortion is low on the list, in my experience, it still has a great influence in their decision-making process. If he isn't supportive, if the father of the baby isn't supportive, then she may lean towards abortion because without his support, it's not the right time. Or without his support, she can't afford to have a child. So I really liked this quote by a man named John Enzer, who's a pro-life advocate. And he says here, what are the roots that are feeding abortion? And there are dozens of roots: fear and greed and lust and prayerlessness and unbelief and an unwillingness to suffer. Inexhaustible roots spread out underneath abortion, and the fallout of unwanted pregnancy is daunting, reminding the church of her high calling. So how do we get ahead of women finding themselves in this situation? And I really think some of it has to do with really helping our young people develop a biblical worldview or a moral value system that influences their decision-making process and empowers them to make good choices instead of simply being ruled by experience or culture. You know, the average age of women that come in are definitely between the ages of 15 to 25. We'll find women in all ranges of that age group. And so there's an element before that we have to address, and that's their life behaviors and how they're finding themselves in this situation. And Lauren Winner wrote a book called Real Sex, and it's a book about, just takes a look at how the Christian faith is handling sex in the church. And she says, in the next slide there, experience considered apart from Scripture and church tradition is not a very firm basis for ethics, for the simple reason of original sin. Our individual experience is corrupted, thus it must be interpreted by and refined by Christian Scripture. So before men and women find themselves partaking in a behavior like sex, well before they have made any personal moral development, we can't be too surprised when we find them seeking an abortion.
Wow. So you guys, you speak to the heart of the issue, and you share God's design with them, which is awesome. But what are some other ways that with Thrive, through the staff and through the volunteers and through the programs, because ultimately you got to get out and get connected with these women to speak to the heart of the issue. So what are some ways you guys do that to help them with their pregnancy and give them hope, and then which ultimately gives life to the unborn?
Yeah, we definitely want to care for men and women so that their children can experience full life. And we do this by working holistically with the woman and by educating her and empowering her with knowledge and the gospel. So these are kind of the main branches that we have at Thrive. We have the Best Choice program, the Pregnancy Resource Center, which I told you about. We have mobile medical centers, Parent University, and also post-abortion care. So Best Choice is where we want to start, and that's our program about sexual integrity that goes into middle schools and high schools. It's an intensive lecture. It's 5 days, 50-minute programs. We cover all of these topics. So we're not going into the schools we're going into the schools with the things of God, but we're not coming from a religious perspective. We're coming from a scientific, psychological perspective so that we can empower and engage young people to make wise decisions, healthy decisions, knowledgeable decisions about their behaviors. It's available free of charge. We're in a number of schools throughout St. Charles, Jefferson County, and even if you wanted to bring one of our educators to your youth group and have them talk about sexual education and integrity and abstinence, they do that as well. So we also have mobile medical units. So they're a lot like our brick and mortar centers. We have Kent, and Kent parks outside of Planned Parenthood at Forest Park in Boyle. He's there every day. So when some of the counselors from outside of Planned Parenthood, they share our services, our free ultrasound and pregnancy tests, and they will generally invite them over to Kent. Sue is also mobile in the community. She goes to different parts of North St. Louis. And Jake is our new endeavor, and Jake's purpose is to be on the college campuses here within the next year or so. We offer the exact same services that we offer in our resource centers. And then we also offer post-abortion care. You know, we have a lot of women that come in and have had multiple previous abortions. We're not there to judge. We're not there to condemn. We're there to continue to offer hope and healing and encouragement. So we offer a 10 to 12-week Bible study to allow women to have freedom from shame and guilt and to enjoy intimacy, from anger and bitterness to enjoy peace, and from depression to enjoy joy. And so that's open to anybody that comes through our facility and has had a previous abortion. We even offer it to volunteers that come back and serve in our ministry. If they want to come to share their story, we make sure that they're prepared, that they've walked through the healing process, because we want their journey to be a part of our helping and healing for the other women that come through our centers. And then, and that's just another picture of Jake. These are kind of what things will look like when we head towards the college campus. Honestly, a lot of this comes from trying to stay competitive with Planned Parenthood. They offer coupons to women on college campuses of their services. And so we want to put ourselves out there and offer our free services to women as well. So we actually have a group of young professionals, young college students that meet as a board to help us know how we can relate better to college students. And then just some statistics about Thrive. So just in this last year, we offered 1,350 ultrasounds. We had 1,630 women make choices for life.
Amen.
We saw at least 527 women attend our Parent University class. And the gospel is equally as important to what we do. And the gospel was presented 1,461 times. And 21,000 students heard the Best Choice program. And then you can see there on the right statistics of work that's been done in Pregnancy Resource Center or crisis pregnancy centers here over the last 31 years. So 90% of women, when they see the ultrasound and realize that you can see by ultrasound at 6 weeks that the baby's heart is beating, 90% of women will change their minds. So that is a really powerful tool for us, because why is it powerful? Because it's reality. It's the truth. And we're not telling anyone that this is just a group of cells, that it doesn't have a purpose. And in fact, we only share with the women that this pregnancy is viable when we do see a heartbeat. So we're letting God's reality and His truth speak for itself, and we're there to empower women in that decision-making process.
Well, thanks for sharing, Gina. Thanks for sharing about what Thrive does and your role.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Gina was sharing about how the women and families can go through training courses to earn bucks to use at the store, and actually that's what Melissa's here to share. She's just going to share with you guys her heart for this ministry and this opportunity for you guys to come alongside Thrive and share with this baby shower drive. So, Melissa.
Thanks, Steve and Gina. Rewind 30 years. I was a senior in college, and my best friend and roommate shared with me that she had had an abortion. Over summer break. She shared every little detail of her experience. And she was brokenhearted, and I was absolutely, my heart hurt for her. A few years later, a neighbor shared with me that she had had an abortion too when she was younger. And then in a previous church, I was involved in a wonderful ministry that helped women struggling from miscarriages, stillbirths, infertility, and abortions. And there I learned of more ladies with abortion stories. So when Quest was considering partnering with Thrive, I was very interested. We believe in God's word that life was created by God and that we're made in his image. And knowing from other ladies' experiences the pain and heartbreak of abortion, I was totally in. I love that Thrive helps ladies choose life for their unborn child. So, about this time last year, a couple of us went with Steve down to Thrive, and we took a tour of the facility on Lindell and the mobile unit parked across from Planned Parenthood. And, sorry, I made a little script too, so I would stay online. And as you saw from Gina here earlier, the leaders and the counselors are just so caring and loving and professional, and they love the Lord, and they share that with the ladies there. So it is just truly an honor and a blessing to be involved in this ministry. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Quest Thrive Team. We have Tara Burnett and Chris Clements, Carol Klein, and Cheryl Corbett. So thank you, ladies, for helping. Yeah, they're awesome. So today, in honor of Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, we are throwing a baby shower for Thrive. And this is to help them. And you might see on the screen, I don't know if it's here, but we also have flyers that we'll be passing out at the end of service that has a list of all the baby items they need for their baby store. And as Gina was saying, that's where the moms go and shop for the things they need for their newborns with the baby bucks that they earn through attending Parent University.